All right, folks, welcome in to episode 2 of The Lounge. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, your host, and my special guest is Paul Tweddle from the incredible movies, like cartoons, all that kind of thing, heavy spoilers show. Man, you have built a giant platform. I am so proud of what you've done because it's been awesome, man. I've been following it for years and I'm a huge nerd. I mean, you could see I got Dragon Ball stuff behind me, Mandalorian. So even though I'm kind of the assumed football guy, baseball guy, I do have time to watch some Marvel movies and all of that. And you make it a lot more fun because I can watch something and then you have things like where you have Easter eggs and breakdowns and all that. So welcome to the show, man, and I really appreciate you coming on.
What a kind introduction. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be here, guys.
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you, and you just put out a video talking about essentially like you're gonna start, showing you. And back when I first started
Yeah.
watching you, it really was just kind of like narration over maybe some static clips or just regular clips and what have you. So I guess really what I want to start off with is somebody that absolutely loves being on camera. I can't disagree with that decision. I think it's a smart one because it puts yourself out there and kind of puts your face and connects it to what you're doing. But how did you get in all this? I mean, Heavy Spoilers has been around since
Yeah.
2009.
I mean, yeah, that was my YouTube channel in general, to be honest. And so I think I started properly doing it around the release of Batman v Superman, the extended edition, which would have been about 2016, 2017. I don't know if you guys can remember, like, I'm going back 10 years, but the PS4 had a built-in share factory thing where you could basically just record gameplay clips.
I
So
remember that.
I used to get my headphones with a mic in, and I'd just play over the top of games and do just commentate on games and do game reviews. And it had quite a good editor in it, especially back then before editing technology was like commercially available en masse. So I just built up like reviews of stuff through that way. But during that time, I was a website developer as well, and I started like in my spare time doing my own website full of reviews. And I'm a massive Batman fan, like always have been. All the graphic novels I actually owned up until that point, pretty much. Some obscure stuff I didn't own, but a lot of them I had. And I set up the website to basically be like, look, we're going to review every single Batman graphic novel ever put out and just make that the website. And then when Batman v Superman came out, I saw that the extended edition wasn't necessarily getting much attention review wise. So I just put together basically a gameplay video of Arkham Knight where I was talking over the top of it and kind of reviewing the film. And that just sort of, I think it got about 2,000 views overnight, roughly. But it made me realize that YouTube was like a much more viable platform because my website was doing like maybe 200 visits a month, and most of them were probably me, if I'm being honest. So yeah, it just kind of went from there, and I saw YouTube as being like the way forward with it. It's crazy looking back how it's became such a massive thing, but back then, it was starting to gain a foothold on stuff, but it wasn't, it wasn't in your daily routine. I think it was around the time where before there were apps built into TV like we have now. You could get it on your mobile, but it wasn't necessarily taking over TV. Netflix were kind of just starting out, and we were still kind of in the legacy media part of stuff. And then it just kind of continued growing, and I sort of learned along with it. My first 2 years, I think I was pretty bad, really bad YouTuber. There wasn't really any care or attention put into stuff. It was just me with a microphone rambling away over the top of gameplay footage. And then I started putting clips in, properly writing scripts, doing audio, mixing it and stuff like that. And I just kind of figured my way through it, and to the point where it's like insane how big it's grown. I remember there was a channel at the time who was a friend of a friend, and he had 8,000 subscribers, and I was blown away by it, and I just couldn't get my head around how he'd managed to do this. And I was like, the Social Blades, a website where you can kind of check out where people are linked and all their traffic's being driven from. And I remember just studying his stuff, seeing like, well, how is he getting it from there, and how is he getting it from there? and yeah, I think I became a student of YouTube. I would say that I became really fascinated with the psychology of why people choose a certain video, you know, why they might click a certain thumbnail, viewer attention and stuff like that, and kind of learned the bare bones of it all whilst developing my content to kind of fit that.
No, I love that. And, you know, the thing that you do is, you know, you will go back and you will find Easter eggs and hidden clues and whatever for like older movies too. It's not just ending explained, which I'm sure ending explained goes super hard on the channel, because that's always like, for me, it is like a ritual of mine. Oh, I finished Mandalorian episode whatever. I'm gonna go check out Heavy Spoilers and see, you know, what he has to say about that ending, because I'm like, still,
no, thank you.
I have an idea, but I want to hear what you have to say. And I think if I feel that way, then I know a lot of other people feel that way. And I think, you know, you make people like me and a lot of others, you know, feel like, wow, okay, I know more about this than maybe I would have if I didn't have access to this channel. So it's really cool what you're able to do. And it also takes a ton of work. I mean, how do you prepare a video like that where, you know, obviously I know some of your videos are scripted. I don't know if they all are.
Yeah. No, pretty much all of them are, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. So
I think it's just a case of practice makes perfect. I don't know how. I think like we might have already done 2,000 videos on the channel. I'm trying to check if it's like a record anywhere, but it was just it's just a case of like going through the motions and kind of figuring it out and developing your style, and then almost building a library of like shortcuts in your head of how to present something, and also how it's going to look in the edit. That's like, I'm doing a lot of the James Bond series at the moment, and there's a guy called Peter R. Hunt who directed On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but he'd edited all the other prior James Bond movies. So when he came to filming it, he already knew how to present it in the edit. And I think because I've been a writer and editor for the channel and went through the whole process, I kind of have like a system now where I just automatically do it in that way, and because of that, everything's kind of very industrialized almost, where it's a process rather than sitting down and being like, well, I don't know what to write about. I'll maybe write this thing or so on. We have like a system that I go through to produce the content.
No, I like that, and I definitely understand that, because, you know, I do a lot of what I do off the top of my head because I retain information, at least as long as it's like stats. I can just spit it back out. But over time, it's funny, like I've had like my usual intro, my usual outro, things like it's repetition. You know, when you keep doing things, it becomes easier. So I totally hear you there. What are your favorite types of content that you create? Because, I mean, you do so many different things. And being able to go back to Dr. No in 1962, the year my mom was born, you know, that was a day ago you put that out. And then, you know, you could also just, you know, run right back, and like when Daredevil Born Again comes out, like you'll have ending explained for, you know, the episodes and stuff. So I guess kind of, because I mean, there are definitely some pieces of content that I prefer to create. I know this has to get done and this has to get done, but I love doing this. Is there anything in your mind that really stands out to you that like I prefer making this as opposed to this?
Yeah, so the trailer breakdowns I absolutely hate, and I mean I got diagnosed with anxiety a couple of years ago, and I put it purely down to doing trailer breakdowns because it's such a rush. And the issue is we were getting trailer videos out so fast that then becomes the standard. And when you're not doing it, people are like hitting you up, where is it? And you start panicking almost and being like, oh, I need to get this done. I do like just taking my time with stuff now. I've really kind of and doing as extensive research as possible, because obviously if a TV show comes out and people expect a breakdown out within a couple of hours, it's not going to be as well researched, and I'm going to have to go off my own knowledge of things, and you're going to miss stuff. And sometimes when you get comments saying you missed stuff, it's like, oh crap, I have, and it kind of kills the video for you a bit. It's like we're lucky now because we can replace audio on our YouTube videos by selecting them as a different subtitle track. But there was a comment the other day, even just talking about the audio in the studio on the Dr. No video, just saying like, oh, it doesn't sound that good. And I was like, we're going to have to go back and remix it and redo it all again. But so you get a lot more of those kind of comments when you rush out the work, I find. So I'm more steering towards taking my time with stuff, going back to these older films that I actually enjoy and want to talk about. And that allows me to select what we cover, and that's why I enjoy it more. Whereas last year I was kind of just going through feeling like I had to cover everything. And if it wasn't good or I didn't enjoy covering it, it's like, well, why am I even making the video? It's kind of like there's two ways you can go through YouTube as a content creator. You can make videos for an audience and kind of second guess what you think people want to watch and make a video for them, or you can make stuff for yourself. And I'm more in the past I have just made stuff for an audience that I kind of came up with in my head and imagined my viewers. But now it's kind of like I just make stuff for myself, and if people want to watch it, that's great.
And it's working out.
Yeah. No, it is. It's really surprising as well. I kind of had my, the weird thing is these classic movie breakdowns, they're not big, explosive, day 1 million view video sort of things. But over time, they continue to get an audience. Like our highest viewed video the last 2 years in a row has been our Shining breakdown. And it didn't have a massive start, didn't come out the gate getting loads of views. It gets about 3,000 views a day, I think, but it does that every single day. So over, the space of a couple of months and years, it just continues to mount up and mount up. Whereas if you do a new TV show, you kind of rush it out, you might get 100,000 views day one, but then it all kind of peters off. And it's taken me doing these classic movie breakdowns for 2 years to see that actually over time these continue to retain an audience, and it is worth going down that path as opposed to just going for like what's popular here and then. And it has kind of been an experiment doing it. And like I said, I've had kind of 1 foot doing new stuff, 1 foot doing older stuff. But it's nice to see that the channel can exist with whatever path we take, whether we want to go back and do a 6-year-old film or do something that's coming out today. It's great. It feels really liberating, and it means we can pick and choose what we actually want to cover now.
Yeah, it's funny actually. A big reason why I wanted to do this is because I'm always kind of viewed as the sports guy, and I'll have athletes on here for sure, but I wanted to do a talk show where I just get to talk to people and just talk about their story and their career and what they're interested in, and then be able to put out content that for the first time in my career is not stale after 24 hours because the 24-hour sports news cycle, I mean, I know it's not quite the same like when you do a trailer video, because that trailer will still have moments where people will go back and they will rewatch stuff, but that evergreen content like a Dr. No video, I mean, that is always going to be up there, and people are always, I mean, new generations of fans of the Bond series are going to watch that movie. They might even be 10 right now, and they're going back to watch the movie with their dad or whatever, and then they're like, oh, I'm gonna go on YouTube and see if anybody, because they love the film. And the thing about these films is that, and to your point of making this type of channel, is that there's always hidden things. Like, just because the director directed the film doesn't mean the director didn't hide things in plain sight. And instead of me having to go frame by frame, you do that, put it together in a video. Is like, there you go. So
yeah, like the three blind mice being in the background of a scene, just walking around, kind of spying on James Bond. I mean, 36 years old now, and I don't know how many times I've watched Doctor No, but I never noticed that until really just overanalyzing the film. And there's so many hidden things like that. I think one of our biggest videos, pointing at Pennywise in the background of your thing, was our video about Pennywise being in the background of scenes in it, and
that's my all-time favorite video you made, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. No, that did like crazy numbers for us.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I released that 2 or 3 years after the film came out. And yeah, just was watching it one day and was like, hold on a sec. There's lots of Pennywise appearing in the background of this. And it's nice just going back to films like that, and you gain a new appreciation for them yourself, and I think viewers do as well, and they see that that it gives them a reason to go back to the film and kind of take a trip down memory lane. It's not necessary. I wouldn't say it's banking on nostalgia all the time, but there is definitely that element.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I 100% agree with you. And I think that the awesome thing is, I mean, that was like about 5 years ago when you came out, the one with, you have the It stuff, but also It Chapter 2. And that just really hit home for me because I love those films so much. And I actually didn't like the original. Like, I was not an It fan, but the newer films, which very rarely happens because I'm a huge Halloween 1978 fan. I'm a huge fan of the 1974 Texas Chainsaw, and I don't really care for the new Texas Chainsaw that much. But when it comes to that It remake, it was so awesome. And then I already loved the film, and then you dropped that video, and I'm going through and I'm like, oh my God, that teacher, with Ben in the classroom, and the teacher's behind him, like that's Pennywise. You see like the red balloon, and I love those things because I didn't see that first watch. So it goes to show you that while you're pointing this stuff out, it's really thought provoking in all the right ways. And it allows, so not only is this evergreen content on your channel, but it also helps out. And this is why I do want to get to this. It also helps out the film. It keeps the film fresh. So now you have this giant, this giant YouTube channel, and you're bringing attention to Dr. No. And I'm not saying that, whoever is in charge or whoever has, the rights to Dr. No is necessarily doing this. But you have these, I guess, this movie industry or TV industry that doesn't seem to understand what you're doing and actually will come after you, believe it or not, for the people listening and viewing. They will actually come after you for, and obviously we know you're doing it in fair use because you're showing clips, but you're showing you, or you're talking over it and adding layers to it where it's like, oh, that's my content. I created this. I used the trailer on a loop maybe, or, whatever, but I made this mine. And then you have people that want to go, and I know this because I deal with it with Game Film. But you have people that want to go and capitalize, and so they copyright claim or copyright strike you. I mean, I guess talk me through that, because that people act like, you make the content, you make money, you get views, you get fame, but there's so many roadblocks, and this is one of the biggest roadblocks for being a YouTube content creator.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the system's so broken. I don't think YouTube's going to change it because people have complained about it so much over the years, and they definitely know about it, but they just have their fingers in their ears and they're just ignoring it. It is a bit of I think when you first go through the process, it's really scary, filling out the counterclaim form. But I'm just at a point now where I've been through it so many times. I know everything we do is fair use. I know a movie studio isn't actually going to take us to the point that they sue us. So I'm very kind of, I'll just charge at it and just basically play chicken until they drop the claim. But it does slow down the process. now I'm almost expecting it. We actually release our videos 7 days earlier for members of the channel. But that also allows me to upload the video and dispute a claim and escalate it to appeal to which takes 7 days to clear. So we've got kind of a good system now where even if it gets blocked or it has a claim on it, our members are getting to see it early still. So there's value in it. And then it kind of times in nicely with having to wait 7 days until that lifts, and then we can put it out officially. So we just found a way to work around it. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, but there's so many people I know who don't even counterclaim things when they get a claim. And they've talked to me, and I'm like, look, it's 100% fair use. There's nothing about your video would hold up in a court of law. As soon as they saw it, they'd say, you clearly transformed this work, you're analyzing it, you're reviewing it. This studio's just taking you for a ride. They're just trying to get all the money out of you that they can. And it's not the studio per se. They've clearly hired someone to do this job. But I don't feel like, I feel like YouTube's very good at catching pirated content. As soon as they as soon as you upload it, if it's like a whole film, it'll just get blocked straight away. So I feel like these people kind of need to justify their jobs, and their boss might come in and go, well, what do we need you for if the system's already doing it? So they'll go through the motions of like manually claiming, like putting manual claims on videos and stuff, and trying to get money that way to kind of justify why a studio should keep paying them money. But it's all BS, and yeah, they haven't really got a leg to stand on if you pursue it.
Yeah, it's tough though, because you have ones that want to like strike you and get the three strikes you're out rule, and so I think it's tough going through that, especially like smaller creators. So it's cool that you threw that out there, like, hey, you can fight this, like they're not gonna pursue you, but I'll tell you right now, there's one, and I don't know, I can mention them, right? Like they're not like, it's not bad to mention them, right?
No,
Somebody that
what's happening? You tell me.
Yeah, no, I mean there's there's this one company, Exos Digital, and
right, okay.
if you've heard of them?
No, never dealt with.
So yeah, I mean I don't think you would, because it's practice, like it's college football film, and the thing is, after like an NFL season, you have the NFL draft and people go crazy for it and they want to get all this tape. And, we call it all 22, where you can kind of see the field just from a bird's eye view. Cause obviously if you're watching a football game, it's normally, that sideline view. It's a big deal because if you're trying to, say scout corners or safeties, they don't really show up on the sideline view as well. So when you go and you upload that and say you use fair use or whatever, and you talk over it, or, you have your face and then show this play and you break it down, Exos does not care. They will claim that every time, and they're notorious for it. So a lot of people in my industry literally just started blocking everybody that's associated with them on like Twitter and what have you. I mean, they were going after people on Twitter. So you do have those kind of nefarious companies that will not work with you and will actually, their goal is to try to ruin you. And it's like, if you really thought about it, if you had some sort of creator program, and this is what I want to bounce this off you. If you had some sort of creator program, like, these type of studios and whatnot, don't you think that would do a world of good, where it's like, okay, we're kind of leasing out the rights to you and you never have to worry about us claiming it ever again? Like, you know what I mean? I feel like something like that should be the case.
Yeah, we're whitelisted by Amazon, which is a massive thing for us. So anything Amazon related, we can review, whatever,
awesome.
upload about, which is really good. There has been a lot of studios that we've approached them about that, and they just don't get it. They just don't get the value in YouTube. And if you say like, I'm uploading an analysis of a film, the Studio Canals one, they were like, how long is it? We were like, oh, it's about 45 minutes long. That's way too long. You can upload it in 5-minute chunks. And I'm like, well, the content's going to be the same it's just going to be spread across multiple videos instead of in one. So how does that make sense? And they're like, no, you can't have it all in one video. It needs to be spread across lots of different ones. And they just don't get it. It's just doesn't cross their mind. And I don't think a lot of them see it as promoting the film. We even had a thing where we informed the studio before we were going to review something and said, look, check your analytics and your digital sales the day before, and if we post our video and you see a rise in sales, we don't want any money or anything. I'm not trying to say like, look how good this is. We just want kind of an easier time making videos and to have permission to do it and help from you guys if you can give it. And yeah, they just didn't respond or anything. Or like once we proved the results, they just stopped responding and wouldn't speak to us. So it's just industry short-sightedness, I would say, where it's kind of, I don't know, they see things as being damaging when it's not, which is just very short-sighted. With what you're going through, it sounds like a company's just been set up to claim revenue on every single video, and they probably invoiced a company at the end of the month saying like, look, we claimed this, we got this amount of money back for you. Because I doubt a lot of people will fight a company like that. So maybe it's just something like that where they're kind of justifying their existence, and they know they're gaming the system, but YouTube allows it because they're rubbish.
I appreciate that. I think it's funny because they don't get it. I guess I want to ask you, kind of sticking with that a little bit here. Do you feel like this is something where just the older generation's still in charge, and as they, I mean, not to be grim, but die off, do you think this gets better, or do you think this is just how the industries are?
No, I think it will get better. I think the younger generation understand that YouTube's very much like TV. Like if you used to watch, say, Siskel and Ebert on TV, a movie studio would never ring up Siskel and Ebert and be like, look, we need you to hand over all the money from this TV show that you've made reviewing our films. And I think people coming in now kind of view YouTube reviews almost in the same vein. And I think once YouTube really starts replacing TV and stuff like that, people just see it as like part of the media cycle, where it's like, in the same way Siskel and Ebert would post a show, well, I say post, like that's an internet term, but would have their show go out on TV on a nighttime, people will just expect like a YouTube video to go out on a nighttime or something. And I do think it will change. I think it's just we're going through, it's still all emerging technology at the moment. YouTube isn't even really that old in comparison to everything. I think we're starting to get the first generation of YouTubers who are retiring sort of at the moment. And that shows how young the industry is. I think once, people go through the process, and like, I still have to explain to my mother what YouTube is and stuff. She's kind of starting to get it, but I can imagine that conversation at a studio, it will just be like, well, are we getting money from this? It's like, no. Is there a way we can get money from it? Yeah, we could claim the video. Yeah, do that then. Do that. But I think it will die off eventually.
No, that's good. And I mean, it's not just in, your industry and my industry, the music industry.
Genuinely, like I used to think, do other industries go through this on YouTube?
They do.
Because like thinking about like, do people post reviews of books and stuff and get claimed by the author and shit? Yeah. I bet there's like loads of just industries running and just getting claimed all the time.
I mean, there are video games you can't even play because they'll claim the music.
Yeah, Nintendo's wild for that. Crazy.
Oh yeah, Nintendo's wild in general.
Yeah,
but no, it's crazy. Like my dad is a musician, and he's had covers that have been. Oh, there we go. He's had covers that have been claimed before. I have friends that have put out their own original music and they've been claimed, which I don't know how that works. Yeah. I mean, that's wild, but it's so funny because like I always bring this up. I bring this up to my audience all the time. Even though I'm a football channel, I'll bring up with Eagles, Don Henley, because he's notorious for just, oh, you're
Really?
yes, you cover
You
like,
claim it in a New York minute.
yeah, he'll claim it. He'll take you to court. I mean,
Fucking hell.
yeah,
You
it's
need to take it
insane.
easy.
Is that wild? It's
Yeah,
it's
that is.
sad too.
Yeah.
It's like taking away the luster of, I guess, covering Eagle, because everyone laughs at that now. It's like, oh, you don't. One does not simply upload a cover of the Eagles or play their song in any way. Like the music, this guy Rick Beato, who like teaches people, okay, this song, this is how you play this. He gets claimed all the time. He gets struck all the time by Henley. So, yeah, there's just so many, I guess, watchdogs and bullies and gaslighters, I guess, on YouTube. But the good news is you get, people like you that figure out a way to get by it. I love that you said it. Like, I'm promoting your film and I'm bringing life back to Dr. No. Like, think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, so we look at it in terms of, okay, people will search Dr. No that they've just watched it, right? But also, what about the people that have never watched it before, have been thinking about watching it? They see your video come up and recommend it, and they're like, I'm going to watch that movie tonight.
Yeah, I've had a lot of comments that are saying, "Oh, look, because we're doing a Bond review every single month, and now people are like, oh, well, I'm going to watch ahead. I'm going to, watch From Russia with Love next month, and then I can watch your breakdown after." And it's just kind of building stuff up. And to be fair, there are some studios who get it. Disney are good at getting stuff. Amazon again. There's just the odd ones that are Paramount and Universal are kind of notorious amongst the scene. Universal especially will just claim and block anything, even positive reviews that don't have the footage in. There's so many people I know who've had their videos completely blocked. Doesn't contain a single frame of footage. They've talked really positively about the film, but Universal just don't want it to be out there for some stupid reason.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I wanted to ask you, because you're in the UK. What is it like? You're covering all these American films and what have you, and I guess kind of having to be somewhat in touch with like the United States pop culture and all that. What is that like? Because I mean, I live in upstate New York in the United States, and obviously, like, we're on completely different time schedules. Like, it's 11:30 here a.m. What time is it for you right now?
It'd be 4:30 p.m.
There you go. So it's funny because, like, when I don't know why now, but when I think of the UK, because so much of my career is based on football, like I think about like when they play internationally. But what say you? In regards to probably a lot of your viewership, like me, comes from the United States.
Yeah, 80%.
Wow.
So quite a lot. But I'm on Twitter all the time. And
you are.
Yeah, so it's like I see pretty much everything, really, to be honest. But from afar, I'm like staring over, looking quietly, like the guy popping out the bushes to have a look on the neighbor. But I've noticed, you guys probably see like all our controversial stories and stuff. I know.
Oh yeah.
The whole Elon Musk's been bringing a lot of light to things. And yeah, it's weird. It's not the grass is always greener, but you do get a lot of, I think, maybe negative and positive stories about America pushed on us to maybe make us almost feel better about certain things. But I'm guessing you guys get the same, because I get so many comments that are like, "Hey, Paul, if you ever need us guys to come over and liberate you, we'll come do it." And I'm like, I feel okay. I know the news seems pretty bad, but I think that's just the news in general that makes everything seem horrendous. And obviously there are bad stories as well. But yeah, it's not difficult keeping you up to date with what's going on in America, luckily. Especially with I remember a couple of, like, even maybe 10 years ago, release dates were so far apart for films. Like,
Oh yeah.
There was sometimes we'd hear about a film releasing in America, and we wouldn't get it in the UK till about a year later. Sometimes, um, but now, I mean, the releases are pretty much the same weekend worldwide. Streaming services have obviously made it a lot easier to everyone can watch the same shows at the same time. Like The Mandalorian, that was another thing. Disney Plus released in America, and I think it took another year to release in the UK.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
managed to watch The Mandalorian through a friend. But they've kind of ironed all that out now, where it's a lot better.
No, I can't imagine doing what you do and then having to worry about that kind of gap. I mean, I'm sitting here already like I never watch like Japanese anime like with just sub. Like I always have been an English dub guy, especially with Dragon Ball. Like I grew so attached to those characters and the voice actors and actresses and um I've been watching Dragon Ball Daima with the sub because it took so long for the English dub to come out. And it's like,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, Japan, when it comes to Dragon Ball, man, they get it like 4 or 5 months before the English dub comes out. And
Yeah.
I'll never understand that because I just feel like you are basically tossing a huge community, a huge part of your fan base aside for 5 months because I mean, I decided to get into the sub. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it's good, but it's definitely been an adjustment. Like I'm not used to just listening to, Japanese audio the whole time. Especially with these characters I grew up with and, all the voices that are very,
Yeah,
distinct.
especially if you watched it on TV when you were younger, and there
Yeah,
obviously wasn't like you couldn't select the audio track. It's just like here's the cartoon, and you just watch
exactly.
whatever audio track comes with it. Pokemon
Yeah.
was like that. Like I
Oh
think it would
yeah.
be weird watching a dub of like the original voices for Pokemon because I'm just so used to hearing the original, well the dubbed versions.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think I could do it with Pokemon. I could barely. I don't want to say barely because I surprised myself on this one, but yeah. And I'm not like a huge anime fan. I've just always liked Dragon Ball, and yeah, there is something there where different countries and different style, whatever that content is that they put out, it is on a delay. And when you're a content creator that is based on these movies and your job is to get this out and you have 80% of your viewership in the United States and they're like, I want this out now, and you don't see it for a year, it's like it kind of puts a bind into your schedule.
Yeah, and I suppose that's another reason why going back to older films has kind of helped because it's like, well, it's 60 years old, so it's fine. I've seen it numerous times. I'm ahead of you guys.
Would you say there's a film that you saw and instantly like thought of doing this channel because of? Like, do you think a film inspired that? Like a specific one? Maybe just they all kind of clumped together? I mean,
Yeah,
um,
the autopsy of Jane Doe was quite a good one, and it was something. Yeah, I think that because it was so ambiguous. Um, I would say probably the autopsy of Jane Doe was kind of a film that I was like watched it and went. I almost created it because I realized that there was no one who'd covered it, and I went to YouTube to kind of look for an ending explained, or which I didn't even know was a term at the time. So like autopsy of Jane Doe spoiler review sort of thing. So that was missing. So I thought, well, I'll think about the film myself and I'll create that. Molly's Game was another one as well. There was a player X as a character in that, and it's clearly based on a real person. So I went to YouTube to kind of find out who that celebrity was and then couldn't find it. So I ended up researching myself and then thinking, well, I'll make a video. So if other people want to know who it is, that's great.
I like that. Those are two that I have not
Yeah.
seen. So Molly's Game was already on my list, but I'll have to put the autopsy of Jane Doe
Yeah,
on my
it's good.
list.
Yeah.
Um,
Autopsy of Jane Doe is really good.
Yeah, I think for me, like if I were to ever go down this path, and I won't because what you do, I can't do half of that. So I have attention to detail, but
I mean, I've got a
it's
good team
compiling it
now.
all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
like it used to be me doing everything, and now I can kind of just solely focus on the details, and then my editors will do that.
no, that's great. I think if I had to pick a movie that would make me feel that way, would probably say Memento. That movie was crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I would say Memento, or man, there's something about Eyes Wide Shut that just felt really unsettling. I felt like there was more messaging that was being pushed,
yeah,
and kind of the same thing with the Truman Show, which I think is an all timer.
yeah.
You've probably
100%.
seen
Yeah,
that, right?
I've got a review of it. Yeah,
Oh,
that's actually
you
one of our
do?
biggest
Okay,
videos. Yeah, yeah.
I gotta watch
That's a
that.
really what we are. I think this was before I went to audio, but it's on 1.4 million views from a year ago, so that's quite nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's I just thought Jim Carrey did a great job, and I think there's a lot of different things in that film, like kind of like They Live as well.
Yeah, They Lived
There's
brilliant.
it's really cool how a lot of these different films that were made not today have a lot to say about today, and the way propaganda is spread, and all sorts of stuff is forced on us, and
Yeah.
it's really
Invasion of the Body
fascinating.
Snatchers. If you haven't seen the 70s version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, give that a watch. That I think I saw that for the first time a couple of years ago, and I was blown away by how good it is. I'd obviously heard of it before, it's a very famous film, but I
Mhm.
didn't quite get how good it was. And I think go watch it, because that is just an incredible film. That is genuinely one of the best films ever made, and I think it becomes more and more relevant. And there's a reason that there's been so many. I think there's been 6 or 7 remakes of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Obviously, that in itself from the 70s is a remake as well, but its themes and the way you can apply it to life and the times now, it's very relevant, like all the time.
No, I love that. My dad has mentioned that multiple times. Like, you got to watch this.
Yeah,
It's on my list. It is definitely on my list.
go watch it after this.
It's so fascinating to me, Paul, because you have these movies that have all kind of, and you see there's definitely an art style to how the movie is done based on the time. I mean, I personally 1990s movies go hard. For me, I think that's probably my favorite era. I know that sounds like incredibly biased because I was born in 95, but it's just like going back and watching them. They just have this kind of edge. And I feel like it's like the golden age of like, that psych thriller genre. But
Yeah, Seven, David Fincher really came to prominence
oh, yeah.
during the decade. Yeah,
And then you
Silence
have,
of the Lambs. Yeah,
yeah.
just lots of stuff. Yeah,
Well, then you
because
have the 30s and the 40s, and they have like the Wolfman, which was, state of the art for its time. And then you
yeah,
have the Invisible Man. And I went back and I watched that because the new one came out, with Elizabeth Moss, like within the last 5 years. Did you ever see the original Invisible Man?
yeah. I've watched
It,
them all. Yeah,
it was so ahead of its time. Like they were doing all sorts of crazy stuff with the camera, and this is like in the 30s. Like it's just wild to me to see all this talent. I mean, we've had just some incredibly, gifted filmmakers. But what I want to ask you is, TV has become super relevant, but also it's not tacky like it used to be. Not everything looks like a CW show. And what I mean by that is where there's not really like a cinematic tone to it. It just kind of feels like maybe like, how like Power Rangers, just you could tell that's a kid's TV show. Well, it's like, as far as TV now, everything is cinematic. Everything feels like, even like comedies now, they try to make it cinematic and like a drama. Kevin can go, what himself. That's a good example. They made that very cinematic. As these TV shows kind of, started to masquerade as almost just films, but longer films that were broken up, do you prefer covering TV shows because they kind of, there's a series and they give you more? or do you prefer covering films?
Films, I would say, because it's kind of a complete story. Where if you're watching a TV, I mean, I do like TV shows as well, but when it's kind of the story's dragged out for 8 weeks or something, it's difficult to kind of go on that journey and appreciate everything for what it is, like you would in a film. If you have an arc or third act structure, they kind of lay things out in a certain way. So I do prefer film to TV, but TV's getting really good. I just don't like with TV. I don't like the gap between seasons, and I do prefer having a complete story. Day of the Jackal is a great one. Like, I love the movie. The TV show's really, really good. But we're like halfway through the story, and we've got to wait another 2 years for that to come out, the next one.
That's how
So
I
yeah, I
feel
would always.
about what is it? Stranger Things. It's like we waited
Yeah,
3 years for that. Like we still don't have it. You
yeah,
know.
and I think films are a lot more rewatchable than TV shows are, just in general. I would always. It's rare I go back to a TV show and just keep watching it over and over and over again, like I would with a film.
I'm currently watching Suits because
Right?
the marketing behind that after the fact, like years after it was
Yeah,
made, is crazy. I mean, it's going to be studied someday how they kind of
yeah,
revived that show, and I do feel like they knew they were coming out with some spinoffs. I know they did Pearson, and now they're going to be doing Suits LA. That's coming out very soon. And I feel like a lot of it, they were already working on Suits LA, so this was all done by design, but it was like almost organically in a way. It felt organic. And you turn on Netflix and it was at the first thing, and a lot of people were talking about it. And I just started watching. I was like, this show is incredible. But I guess really the thing I love about Suits is there's 9 seasons, I believe. I'm on season 7. There's 9 seasons, and nowadays it just feels like all these shows you get like, and they're crazy. Like Loki was amazing, but Loki's only 2 seasons. So it's
yeah.
like, I feel like shows committed to longer seasons and more seasons. Do you feel like that is a concern going forward with the TV show industry? Like how they're kind of making mini series and maybe
Yeah.
while they're cool, a lot of it's like spin-off stuff and maybe we're not getting like we're not going to ever get a Frasier again type deal. Like, do you think that's a concern going forward?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do kind of miss like long TV shows, um, like The Walking Dead. Looking back at that, that was shot pretty well, but it was like 22 episodes every year, non-stop. Um, and yeah, I do kind of miss that feeling. Everything is kind of a limited series, and they're trying to make like 6-hour movies now, I find. Um, but I'm sure it'll go back. The pendulum will swing the other way, and they'll kind of realize like we're spending so much on these TV shows, people are watching them and then never going back to them. So I think probably yeah, you will see the pendulum swing the other way because it feels like they've almost forgotten how to make that kind of TV show,
Mm.
and now they're all very similar, like 8 episodes, you know, 30 minutes to an hour long. It's kind of Netflixed itself.
Yeah, it's funny because like Suits is like 45 minutes for show.
Mm,
I'm not gonna lie, a show with how busy my schedule is, there is some sort of thing that I don't take the 24 minute slot for granted. Like those kind of sitcom-y, How I Met Your Mother style. Of course, they canceled that. I want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, what do you think about you invest all this time as a consumer of the product, right? A
yeah,
consumer of the TV show, and they are so quick to write it off as a tax write off and get the thing off the air.
yeah. I mean, 1899 was a show that I really, really liked, and I could see where it was going, and I was so interested to kind of stay on board with that. But yeah, they just cancelled it, and you just kind of feel like you wasted your time. And again, that's kind of why I prefer films, because it's like a complete story, and you at least know what you're getting when you start it up. Whereas, yeah, I mean, you can watch TV shows for years and years, and it just gets cancelled. Sarah Connor Chronicles is a great one. I mean, there's so many. Yeah, there's so many that have been cancelled, and it's been like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
I was into that. I really like that. Where's it gone?
The Peripheral on Amazon. I really
Yeah,
liked that.
yeah.
And you finish the season and you're like, wow, that was pretty good. And there's a big cliffhanger at the end, and they're like, well, sorry. It's
That's
just
it. Yeah.
it's like, do we get a refund? Nope. Not that I
Nope.
paid for anything, but and then for you, maybe you cover the Peripheral or something, not saying that specifically, but you cover that show and you put time into it, and now it's like, and I don't know, has this really happened to you where they've canceled a show that you've actually put time into getting content out on it, or do you just wait for these things to, like, obviously, for instance, a Marvel series, that's going to go all the way through, there's going to be value, but like for something like, say, How I Met Your Father, it's not a guarantee it's going to get a third season or a second season. Is that kind of something that you kind of wrestle with in terms of the content that you create?
Not really. I mean, with Netflix, we kind of do because they just cancel stuff all the time.
Ugh, yeah.
And it's kind of backfired now because it almost puts you off getting into their shows because there is the worry that they'll get cancelled.
Yeah.
So not massively. You kind of just ride it as it comes and try not to think too far ahead of like, is this a waste of time covering it? Because in the moment, it's not. If that makes sense.
No, it definitely makes sense. It's so funny. There's so many different things that go with this type of content in your type of industry because you have to focus on things like that. It's like, oh, well, if I make 8 videos for this season and they cancel it, well, now those 8 videos, they'll still be evergreen because people are going to go back and they're going to watch that season. But at the same time, it does kind of limit the ceiling of those videos. And, that's BS, I mean, I don't necessarily think, what was it, Batwoman or Batgirl? I don't necessarily think that was going to be great. I didn't have a great feeling about it. But there's something about these people putting in all that effort to make it, and there's just having it scrapped as like a write-off. Like, I mean, they even got Michael Keaton on that. Like, you know what I'm talking about, right? On HBO.
Yeah.
And I mean, we never saw it. And there are people that claim it's so funny. I remember when it got canceled or shelved or whatever, and there were people like, yeah, I have this leaked copy. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, no one has that. No one's gonna ever see it.
Yeah.
It's
Dexter's a good example of one that did that keep getting cancelled. I can't imagine
they kept
covering
bringing
that
it back. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got a new spin-off now or something.
Yeah. And as far as like the topics, because you said you're a big Batman fan, which I mean you could tell obviously, in your videos. Do you prefer comic book like movies and TV shows to cover, or do you prefer just like regular standalone films?
Oh, I think just go back and forth with it, to be honest. It's kind of, I think if you do something too much, you kind of lose interest in it and it kind of loses its luster. So it's nice doing comic book stuff from time to time, but then the markets became so oversaturated that it's when it gets to the point where it's like every single month's like the same superhero show, just in a different pair of tights. It does get, and that's also what pushed me towards doing it. Like James Bond, growing up, I was a massive fan, like crazy fan of it. And I've kind of been accepted into some of the Bond community by some of the fandoms, and I know some of them are thinking this guy's just hopping on a trend, but it's not really trendy to be a James Bond fan at the moment. But I think all the comic book stuff just constantly being out all the time, it made me withdraw, and in a way kind of sparked my interest again for other things. And then I kind of became fanatical about Bond again, it's been nice. But yeah, there's not really something that I want to, there's not necessarily a certain topic that I want to keep covering forever, because I find that they get run into the ground over time, and it kind of
Mm.
kills the interest for you. Like you can see that with the comic book movies now. You can totally see that the general audiences are just kind of a bit fed up of how much there's just every single month's like a new comic book show. It's like, well, I've seen this so many times, it's not doing anything different, and you're drawn towards the things that aren't just necessarily the same thing over and over. And I think that's kind of how you develop your interest. Um, so yeah, there's not really a set path of like I'm I'm solely interested in just covering this forever, or even films and TV shows. It's nice to have a variety of things that you can do.
No, that definitely makes sense. I got two more questions for you, and then I'm gonna
Mhm.
end the show because you were so busy and you got like a million videos to edit and create, and really appreciate your time. First thing I want to ask you, to wrap this thing up. First thing is that when it comes to say the MCU, right? Because I have to ask you this, where are you on the MCU right now? Do you like the direction they're going in? Likely going for a soft reboot after Battle World with, that whole thing, Secret Wars, which, God, we've been hearing about Secret Wars since 2010. Do you like the direction they're going in? Do you like the new Avengers they're pushing, or are you kind of like, I don't know, I'm kind of over it? Where are you on that?
I think it's like the encore. I kind of feel like it's an encore. It's kind of you've had your big set piece with Avengers Endgame, everything building up to that, and I think that Secret Wars is kind of they've returned, and it's like this is what it is. And I think after that, it's going to really peter out. I think it really is. I think people are kind of riding until to see what this is, and I think people are going to then kind of jump off, unless they produce something amazing. But I don't know how much else they could. The multiverse is kind of like the last thing because it's getting so many of the older actors in and pulling the franchises together, and it's like, how do you top that and make it feel like something new? Because we're just going to go back to a single universe, and yeah, it's going to be difficult for them. But it's going to be good for an audience because they're going to be given new things to watch and new experiences and things that are going to be fun as well. So there's positives with it as well.
Yeah, like with the X-Men reboot, that's like obviously happening afterwards.
Yeah.
Maybe even during to an extent, but I think they'll probably work that in. And it's funny because it's the worst kept secret that they're not going to do a soft reboot after Secret Wars. Like, I don't think you ever see
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire again as Spider-Man. Like, I think that will probably be his send-off, whether they kill him off or he goes back to his universe. Because to your point, you can't just keep the multiverse going. You can't have every single thing be a cop out. Like,
Yeah.
because that gets old, that gets stale. And I guess you also want this younger generation to have, because I mean, like, I feel like Spider-Man was for everybody, right? Everybody could be Spider-Man. That's what Stan Lee said. But the reality is there's just not a lot today that's like a new original character. Like Miss Marvel's relatively new, but there's just not a lot for like this young generation to feel like that was my character. That was my childhood. So it's
I'm trying to
interesting.
think what the last one was, really. For me, Wolverine in X-Men was probably like, I'd be like, that's a guy that was my character. Like a cool guy just walking around smoking cigars, sticking claws out, but it hurt him. It had like a cool edge to it. Spider-Man, obviously, people relate. I don't know if you kind of attach to different characters throughout your life. Like Spider-Man, I feel like a lot of people go through the process of they really like Superman when they're very, very young. And then they kind of like Spider-Man and then kind of go into Batman. And these characters reflect different points of your life. Like, I'm sure the argument's there that I've only gotten back into James Bond because I'm pretty much at the age of like I'm 36 now. So like the age the character is typically portrayed as. And I don't know, maybe when I hit my, get older, I'll start getting into Sherlock Holmes or something. But yeah, it doesn't really feel like there is that new character who's kind of broken through everything. Maybe in video games, I would say there's probably some characters there that you can kind of say, this person, Nathan Drake, for some
I was
reason, is
just
like
gonna say
the one
that.
that springs to mind. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nathan Drake, he's the big breakthrough. But Zelda and Mario and stuff, and you have these characters that break through. I don't know what the next one will be. Obviously, they haven't been invented yet, but I'm sure there will be some. But I don't know if because comic books, they kind of almost refuse to invent new characters.
I
Um,
know.
like the race swapping and stuff, I see that happening so much, and I don't say why have you done this in an angry way. I just look at like how successful Black Panther was, how successful Blade was. Those are original black characters, and I think you can clearly create original black characters that are very, very successful and people love. You don't even need to race swap it. It's kind of, yeah, it's weird to me that they do that instead of thinking, you know what, like you said, like there's a gap that they could create. Miles Morales has kind of stepped into that, to be honest. I do see Miles, a lot of kids
Yeah, I
relating
like
to
the way
him.
they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. To be fair, Miles is like a new character, but even then, he's kind of based on Spider-Man. Well, he is a Spider-Man, so. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? They haven't got that new kind of crazy runaway success character that's kind of came in and made their own stamp. Yeah.
No, I like that. And it's like video games, I do think have been like kind of the cop out there for like those characters. Cause Nathan Drake, like that's like my Indiana Jones. And now I'm getting
Yeah.
more into Indiana Jones since that new game came out. I still can't believe the job Troy Baker did with the voiceover. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's crazy. It's just like,
is he good?
oh yeah, it's just like, young Indiana Jones. And it makes me more interested in
Yeah.
going back and rewatching those films and having more of an appreciation of it. And I loved Han Solo. I mean, I'm just a big fan of Harrison Ford. But, Bond, obviously, I mean, I love Daniel Craig. It was so hard for me leaving that movie theater. I was like, man, we're really not going to get another Daniel Craig Bond. And I don't know
Yeah.
how I feel about that. But, that John Wick, I don't know what they're doing with that whole series. I know Ballerina comes out this year with Ana de Armas, but there are a lot of different characters, to your point. And the last thing I wanted to ask you here is that I wanted you to give me one thing that is in movies and TV shows that like, maybe an element, something where you're like, this makes me feel good about this already. Right away, you notice it and it's like, whatever that is, and then there's something that is a turnoff, and just you see it, and immediately when you see it, you're like, I'm gonna keep watching, but I'm not. I don't love that they just did that. So, like, what are those things for you? Those elements, if you will.
I think a slow build I really like in a TV show. The Day of the Jackal's a really good example of that. If you watch the first half hour, there's a scene where it's just him lying on a table in a room with a sniper rifle, waiting for the target to come along so he can kill them. And it's a really well-paced, slow build that isn't flashy, isn't over the top, but you can tell they want to give the message and have this big crescendo. In terms of instant things that I don't like, I don't know. I think, you know, like political correctness doesn't really bother me that much, but there are like the new Doctor Who I really wanted to get into, but there was just kind of a feeling that they were just trying. They'd overthought everything to the point of, can this be offensive to someone? Can this be offensive to someone? To the point where it's that they're almost scared to take any risks. And that was definitely something I felt with the new Doctor Who. But I still tried to power through it. I just didn't find it that interesting. Yeah, just stuff like that, really, where it's kind of, I don't know. Yeah, just very. You can feel the corporate puppet strings kind of holding things in place and being like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and it feels more like content rather than an event. I feel like Star Wars has kind of fallen into the issue of being content now rather than an event like it used to be. Like a Star Wars movie used to be a massive thing, whereas now it's just like, oh, it's content for a streaming service, and that's kind of meh. I'm a bit meh on it.
No, I like the way you said that, and that's kind of how I feel. I don't like things shoved onto me, and I think what a lot of these corporate entities don't realize is this is kind of our escape from all the BS. And when you bring the BS into our kind of, you know, our sacred area where you're bringing, like, my living room is made like that is essentially my time to get away from all this. This is my relaxation time after working 12 hours today. I don't need to have this shoved in. And, you know, you can make of that what you will. What is that? I mean, there are a lot of different things that could go about that. But I think really it's just the nonstop, like, oh, saying this instead of that, and just how things have changed where, you know, films that you've maybe even reviewed are now considered not films that are acceptable to watch, I guess, in today's climate. And it's a little weird. I would agree with that. And then I think, like, for me, I actually like, you know how I like my start to a movie or a TV show? The beginning of Dark Knight. I actually liked how they focused on, I mean, people would say Joker's the main character of that movie, depending on who you talk to. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people would. But Joker's the antagonist of that movie. I love starting with like an unconventional way where you're not just zooming in on the protagonist at the start. You're actually zooming in on who they're going to challenge later on in the movie, and building up why are they this way? What is their villain origin story? By the way, The Incredibles. Like, I know people are like, The Incredibles. That movie is so well made, and the way the beginning starts, I mean, showing you how Syndrome becomes Syndrome in that origin story that we always joke about. Oh, it's his origin story on Twitter. That's literally what it was. And like, it showed how he became the way he was. And yeah, it's a kid's movie, but you can take away a lot of great things on the way that was structured, you know?
Yeah, definitely. No, they're masters at their craft, telling stories like that. And those stories kind of stick with you over the years.
I mean, I'm still talking about it in 2025. So clearly they did something. But hey, Paul, really appreciate you. And
thank you for having me on about it. I had a good chat.
Oh, of course. You guys, be sure to check out Paul at Heavy Spoilers on Instagram, at Heavy Spoilers on YouTube. I don't like the ats on YouTube, but that's just me. I feel like that's a little weird. But then is it at Heavy Spoilers on Twitter? I want to make sure. Get people to follow you.
Yeah,
at Heavy Spoilers. So you're at Heavy Spoilers everywhere. So yeah, check out Paul. He's awesome. Great guy. Thank you for our chat, man. Really appreciate it. And, keep on killing it. We'll be in touch. I'm a big fan of what you do. And you make me, like, and we haven't even talked about this part, but you make me laugh on Twitter. You are hilarious, man.
Not in this video, though.
You are very funny on Twitter. So really appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. And I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.
Great. Thank you.